Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Martin Boyd, VP Product Marketing at Prophecy, and welcome to our webcast on migrating MDS to MDM, to Prophecy MDM specifically. We have a good long list of people on the call today. Appreciate you all being here. And we're going to talk obviously about how to migrate from MDS to MDM. There's a number of reasons to do that, mostly around the expansion of capabilities that you'll get with MDM. A lot of people are asking about it. A lot of people are interested in it. One thing I want to mention before we really jump into the meat of the presentation is in the invite for this, we talked about MDS going on to extended support and not really being supported by Microsoft. That was an error that became clear when recently, in the last 2 weeks, Microsoft put out a note on some minor feature upgrades and compatibility upgrades as part of SQL Server 22. Now that they've done that, that resets the clock on support for another 7 years for regular support and extended support for another 4 years or so past that. So I just wanted to make clear before we really jump into this that the idea that MDS is completely going away is not necessarily it's not at all correct. So I just wanted to clear that up. The reasons really to move off of MDS to MDM are really functional, and we're going to get into a lot of detail around that. So apologize if there's any confusion around that, but just wanted to make that clear. I'm going to introduce my my good friend Tyler Graham, who's going to be walking us through some demos of Prophecy, and because of his knowledge of MDS, I'll explain in a moment, he'll be able to draw some comparisons on what you could do in MDS versus what you can do in Prophecy, which is a whole lot more. Okay, let me share my screen and we will jump into this. This is scheduled for an hour. I would expect that will give us plenty of time for Q&A. If there's any questions at all, please drop them into the Q&A tab on the in the webcast software. If you stick to the Q&A rather than splitting yourself between Q&A and chat, then it'll just be a little easier for us to track the questions and whether we've answered them or not. We should, as I said, have time to answer all questions during the webcast here today. But if we don't, we'll follow up offline with any questions that you have. Should be seeing my screen now, so let's jump in. So, come on. There we go. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background around MDS and our credentials for even talking about all of this. I'll give you a little bit of background on Prophecy as part of that and our Microsoft relationship, which is kind of for people who are on MDS, that's probably going to be a fairly important piece of information because you're probably Microsoft oriented one way or another if you're using MDS. Then we'll get into a little bit of what is the comparison between MDM and MDS. And there really is quite an enormous delta in capability. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then Tyler's going to show you that by showing you Prophecy live. And if you have any specific questions about how some kind of functionality from MDS maps to Prophecy or whatsoever, Ty will be able to answer it there. If you drop questions in the chat, we'll try and handle them as we go. Then I think one of the reasons to move off of MDS and onto MDM is the deployment options you have. So we'll talk just a little bit about SaaS and PaaS and how we deploy, and then we'll wrap up. But like I said, please drop questions in the chat here. We're more than interested in hearing your questions. Okay, so Prophecy knows MDS. We have a long shared background here. Other people may say that they have the ability, you know, they understand MDS and can help you migrate off of it or whatsoever. Nobody has as deep a background as Prophecy. In fact, I would venture to suggest that if you take the whole history of MDS from start to current stage, there's probably no one on the planet knows more about that than Tyler, who is on the webcast with us here. And we have a huge amount of technical knowledge throughout our organization because we used to be built on it. So a little bit of background here. In 2006, Microsoft was acquired by Stratasys. Strateger was acquired by Microsoft. And the Strateger tool set was productized to become what we now call MDS. At the time, it was a leading tool set for enterprise dimension management, essentially what I think we would now call reference data management, to share and standardize attribute data, customer list, product list, simple lists of things, drop-down list, pick list, dimensions, however you want to think about it, that could then be shared across the organization, which was and is a great thing to do. In 2007, some of the principals who were acquired with Strateger spun out of Microsoft and Prophecy to build an application platform on top of MDS. They recognized the limitations of MDS and what it could do, and thought that there was a business opportunity to build a whole platform on top of that to extend its capabilities. And that was the genesis of Prophecy. They wanted to add in an application UI incorporating workflow, data stewardship, match and merge, the things that we now think of as master data management. One of those principles was Tyler on the call here today, the guy who literally wrote the book on MDS. So any of you who are using MDS probably are familiar with his name or at least his work. A celebrity amongst us. In 2007, so Prophecy built our whole business on a technical foundation of MDS, and that was great for a while. But then in 2017, Microsoft, or before 2017, but leading up to, Microsoft said or told us privately that MDS was never going to become cloud native. They were never really going to develop it farther than they had already done. And so if we were building our business on it, we should really move off of MDS, which we did. And in 2017, most of our customers, hundreds of customers who were built upon MDS, migrated off of MDS and into Prophecy, which no longer, they were on Prophecy, built on MDS, then they moved to Prophecy, not built on MDS. So we have a lot of experience, the most experience of any company in the world, I would suggest, probably including Microsoft, of migrating people off of MDS into something else. So we're going to talk quite a bit about all of that and how we've done it and how we can help you do it. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, our credentials here. I don't believe there's anybody else on the planet that would be able to say this list of stuff. So a little bit about Prophecy before we go any farther, just so you know who we are, like who Prophecy is today, as opposed to where we came from. Today, we are known as a leading MDM vendor, one of the fastest growing vendors in the market. In fact, we just finished in January our largest quarter ever, which was part of our largest year ever. We're growing at a fairly substantial rate. And certainly within the MDM space, we're one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, hard to know exactly, but certainly extremely healthy. We have a best-in-class multi-domain MDM platform. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what that can get for you. And we have a flexible deployment models. You can be deployed on platform as a service, meaning you can deploy in your own tenant, which I'm guessing for most of the people on this call would be Azure, but it could be Google Cloud or AWS or on-prem if that's what you prefer. And importantly, you can use us software as a service, fully turnkey. We will host your instance in Azure and just give you the keys and let you use it now. And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that later on. Our customers generally like us. If you go to Gartner Peer Insights, you'll see that we have the highest recommendation rating of any of the mainstream MDM vendors. And we work very hard on that. That's not an accident. It's not just coincidence. It's something we work hard on. We also, by the way, measure our NPS score, which I'm not sure that any other MDM vendors do, but NPS is the Net Promoter Score, and anyone familiar with that would know that our rating of 78 is extremely high. Enterprise software on average is about 40, so we're about double. And it's kind of it's a distribution curve, which means we're way out on the periphery, we're way out on the edge of high performance there. We're on the Gartner Magic Quadrant, prophecies, and one of the things they have said in the MQ doc is the prophecy strategies to make MDM easier to understand and deploy. And Tyler will I think in the demo show you'll just be able to see how easy it is to understand and deploy as a user. And also prophecy has more implementations taking under 3 months than any other vendor. MDM has a reputation, probably due mostly to some of the older vendors in the field for being slow and difficult to implement. We believe that it doesn't need to be costly and risky to implement. Most of our customers get live in 3 months, and that's for a lot more than just reference data and simple matching and simple standardization and things like that. Those are for complex use cases. If all you're doing is replicating MDS capabilities in Prophecy, I would expect it would take substantially less than 3 months, but we can talk more about that as we go. And since this is more than likely a very Microsoft-centric audience, I'll just give a little bit of background on our relationship with Microsoft. Clearly, from what I already said, we have deep relationship with Microsoft. Over the years, we're built on the same tech stack. Prophecy MDM, I think, is very familiar to anybody who's used MDS because it's same underpinnings, same DNA, a lot of the same concepts. So over time, we have built out our relationship even farther, or deepened, I should say, really our relationship with Microsoft even farther. And I'll just give you a flavor of that here. There are many resources on our website, or I do a weekly webcast of showcasing some of our capabilities, and we talk much more about this. But just to give you a flavor, back in the fall, Microsoft announced or really launched Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform. There was a very limited number of vendors who were invited to that. We're one of them, and we're included in Satya's keynote presentation there. Why was that? Because we've got a lot of integration into a lot of the key Azure capabilities. We're integrated with Purview. So if you're thinking about governance as a concept beyond just reference data management, Purview may be one of the things you think about. We have the first, deepest, and most mature MDM integration with Purview. We're integrated with Data Factory. So we're the first MDM with a pre-built ADF pipeline templates, and that can be used both for ingesting data from multiple systems into Prophecy, but also publishing information out, including reference data that people can subscribe to. We have a connector with Power BI. We're the first MDM to ship a native connector with Power BI. And in both cases, both ADF and Power BI, our software is being shipped as part of their releases in order to just make it easy to implement. We can publish out to Synapse, Snowflake, Databricks, whatever it is you would like. And we're a top tier or gold partner with Microsoft. We have the most MDM implementations on Azure, the most joint sales with Purview, and the most deals on Azure Marketplace. And we have a lot of sponsorship within the Microsoft organization. Mike Flasco here, the executive owner of Purview, said recently, MDM is an important aspect of unified approach to data governance. The combination of Azure Purview and a deeply integrated MDM solution such as Prophecy is a tremendous benefit to Azure customers. So this webcast isn't about all of those things. This webcast is about MDS. But I think one of the main reasons to think about moving off of MDS is because you want a lot more capability. But if you can get it in a framework that's familiar and just expands on what you already know, then that would be a good reason to do it. So again, not going to get into all of these details here, although we can answer questions on any of them. I just wanted that to be part of your perspective on how we work and what we do. Okay, so MDS is a good product. I'm not here to say that it's not a good product, but it has some limitations. It's on what we think of as sustaining engineering. That's not an official designation by Microsoft or anyone else, but there's really only minor development going on and bug fixes. The dev has moved to China. There's little or no active development. If you go through the release statement from a couple of weeks back from Microsoft, there were a few functional things. They were very minor, more in the nature of compatibility things, I would argue with you. But again, I'm not saying that it's not a product or not supported. but it's not moving to the cloud, meaning it's not going to be a cloud native capability in Azure. It is still supported in SQL Server 2022, which means, you know, the support clock has got another 7 years to run though. So, but it's never going to be developed into anything functionally really much more than what it is today. The capability limitations, no matching, limited UI configuration, no workflow. We're going to get into a lot of that with Tyler in just a minute. And there are some hidden costs because it is not a first-party Azure service. So if you want to move to the cloud, you need an enterprise SQL license to run on a VM and SQL managed instance, which are both, I don't know exactly the cost, but I'm told they're both quite expensive. So in 2017, as I mentioned before, Microsoft advised Prophecy to really move off of MDS. By 2018, we had moved most of our customers off of it, and we now have a cloud native PaaS and SaaS offering with ADS integration, et cetera, et cetera. So where does this leave you? Well, maybe you're happy with where you are, and I'm not going to be the one to tell you you have to move off of anything, but I think there are good reasons why you might want to. So, you know, you could think of MDS. I'm going to talk about this in a couple of different ways. MDS, you could think of it as maybe MDM version 0.5. It's a precursor to, it's maybe a foundation of, but there's a lot of things that it doesn't do. It does aggregate data to give you a single point of control so that multiple apps can subscribe to your reference data, etc. It was great in its time, but now outdated, limited capabilities, limited future. You can move to cloud with additional cost, but most people still only use it on-prem. So if you want to go to a more modern thing, or really I would say a more expansive thing, Prophecy's full-featured MDM, multi-domain, cloud-native, data stewardship apps, easy to learn and use, and a platform for the future. So let's talk about that platform for the future. So some of the same things I just mentioned, but in a different representation. So Prophecy, or rather, let me build that out, MDS is there for reference data management. Central reference for lookup lists, dimensions, et cetera, a good thing, relatively small in the scheme of things, but a very good thing. What does it miss out on? Well, these buildings are a little odd here. Your next stage of maturity, if you want to get beyond just managing dimension lists, you probably want to get into at least single domain master data management, starting to unify data across silos and major domains such as customer, product, location, vendor, asset, things like that. More than just pick lists and lookup lists, but data that's coming from multiple different silos in the business, ERPs, CRMs, legacy apps, et cetera, external data feeds and the like. And in order to make that data helpful and usable, you need to unify that data so that all apps are looking at the same customer list, the same product list, et cetera, et cetera. I would say that's a few years ago, maybe people thought about this as their destination. I don't think anyone really thinks much about that as being their destination anymore. You really want to get to the next level. Sorry, the build is a bit weird here. Which is getting to multi-domain or something that starts to support your data fabric. And data fabric, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here talking about data fabric, but when you start to invest in your data as part of your enterprise assets and part of the value and part of the capability of the company, you're going to be thinking about data fabric and how this all kind of weaves together, so to speak. And it starts with getting to multiple domains. Most of our customers, Prophecy customers, are multi-domain. I think 83% is the number of customers have more than one domain, and 63% of them implement their second domain in the first year. That's because we're not looking to just clean up your customer data, not looking to just clean up your product data, looking to enable an enterprise-wide data strategy, including AI or whatsoever, because as we all know, AI, as important as it is, it's a garbage in, garbage out proposition, just like most things in IT. So if you're looking to use it for an enterprise strategy, you really need to cover multiple domains of your data so that you can enable AI AI, or any form of digital transformation. We just recently had Nestle Purina speak at the Gartner conference a couple of weeks back in Florida, and they talked about how they're using MDM as a foundational capability to fundamentally change the way they do business. Purina, as you probably know, is pet food and pet supplies, including vet supplies and things like that. They're using MDM to master all of the veterinary practices in the US and contacts within those practices, which is, well, I'm not supposed to mention the number of records, so I won't mention that, but a large number of those records for vets, but then they're moving to mastering how they manage customer and even pet information, so that they can build a better relationship, et cetera, et cetera. So that's obviously going way beyond reference data management. So I won't belabor that point anymore. There are big functional reasons why, when you want to invest more in your data, this is the kind of thing that you would want to be able to do. Okay, so when should you keep MDS? Well, there are lots of reasons why MDS might be great for you. If you're happily using it today and you have no plans to expand beyond simple reference data or move to the cloud, maybe you don't need to worry about this. If you're not concerned about the lack of functional development from Microsoft, then fine, maybe no reason to move. Recognizing the hidden costs, the licensing costs that you might have to deal with if you want to move to the cloud. Simple tactical use, if it meets your needs, then great. But there are lots of reasons to move off of it and expand your usage and move up to MDM. If you want to expand to full MDM, match merge, data quality, data stewardship, some of the things that Tyler's going to show you in just a second. If you want to build applications for stewardship so that you can have multiple people log in, access a domain, regulate things like matching and merging, update metadata and things like that, getting domain-specific, role-specific, and use case-specific apps to allow the centralized management of this data. If you want to embrace data governance and start thinking about, in a more expansive way, about what are the rules for how data needs to be managed and controlled, the quality of the data, the ownership of the data, all of that kind of stuff, broadly enforced standards. You can do it with a range of data governance tools, including Purview, or you could do it with just native capability and Prophecy. And if you want to expand and maximize the value of your data, building, modernizing, and managing your data estate, and you want to move to the cloud, particularly PaaS or SaaS. So basically, when you decide you really want to leverage data to drive business value, would be the reasons to do it. Anything strategic. So just I think a final slide before we hand over to Tyler here. This is a full-featured platform. MDM is a full-featured platform. Does everything from workflow to data quality to matching and merging and survivorship, relationship management to relate and navigate between master data entities. Stewardship and governance was where people will interact with their data to make sure that it's correct, and then integrating it to all parts in the organization. If you look at the kind of footprint that MDS used to have, the stuff in kind of this green teal is what I say used to have, still has, but what we think of as the past. It has some good capabilities that you're well aware of, but if you're moving up to Prophecy, you get a whole lot more. If you, oops, there it goes. There's a whole lot more capabilities really around workflow, matching and merging, and stewardship and things like that that Tyler's going to show you just now. You can find this chart on our website. We have a solution area on the website for Purview, it's not Purview, for MDS, and you can go find all of this detail there. Okay. We also have a set of migration utilities that come free of charge with Prophecy if you buy Prophecy. So really, it's a pretty quick and painless upgrade if you want to do it. So you specify the location of your instances, click and migrate, automatic conversion of entities, hierarchies, users and groups and data, everything except DQ rules, and Tyler can speak more to this when he shows the software here, but TQ rules are substantially different, so they don't automatically migrate. You just specify then access and security, build out your DQ rules, build out fast apps, which is the applications data stewards will use to interact with the data, and you're done. So if you have a pretty, the thing I think that would take effort beyond this was whatever data, whatever systems are subscribing to your reference data, you may need to reintegrate those, but that's pretty much it. So I feel like I've spoken for far too long here. Let me turn over now to Tyler, who's going to show you what some of this looks like and kind of bridge the mental gap, if you like, between what we have today and what you already have with MDS. Okay, let me stop sharing, Tyler, and let you take over.
Thanks, Martin. All right, I think I have the rights now.
And just as Tyler's getting going here, reminder, please drop any questions in the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer them before we're done. And I'm going to turn off the video feeds just so that you can see the screens a little bit better. Go ahead, Tyler.
I stopped my video feed as well, just so that I can make sure I give you the best presentation possible. All right. So I think everybody should be able to see my screen right here. This is what we like to call the Fast App portal. This is basically where you actually will empower your business users to interact with the data. So when we built Master Data Services, or even prior to Master Data Services, we've always been about empowering the business user to interact with the data and to relegate IT's role to more of a process management type of role. We really think that the game of telephone that kind of happens where IT has to go and be reactive, talk to the individual business owners and find that data out and have them then put that data into their dimensional systems, their analytical systems, reference data, databases, any of that kind of stuff was just a relic of the past that just didn't need to happen. So the first step in that was what you use now as Master Data Services. And it has the rudimentary idea of forms and lists and grids. And this is just going to take this to a whole nother level, right? You can just think of Master Data Services as really what Prophecy kind of envisioned, or the people of Prophecy envisioned back in 2012, 2013. And this is really where we've taken that. So to that end, this is our Fast App menu. We want these, in this case, they're mostly domain-based. This is my healthcare model, just because we'll talk about this kind of data. So you can see things like employee and facility, onboarding, reference data, data governance. Any of this data can be stored in Prophecy. But what I would want end users to do is more use case driven, right? I'm here to show the art of the possible. I'm going to show large screens with lots of different functionality, but I would really, tell users to build very use case driven, focused information where I show 7, 8 different fields where I give people the context they need to make a decision and the 1 or 2 fields they need to change to enact a decision. But to that end, if I go to my next screen here, you're going to see that this is provider data. There's a couple of things I want to highlight on the screen. We can have report parts put onto the screen here, and they're going to then show into the provider list as well. So I can actually see master provider information in a list, and these are interactive, right? So if I click on my hospitals, it's going to bring only the hospital records to bear. So I'll see the 408 records of hospitals. And if I go even smaller to the newborn intensive care unit, I'll see the 5 providers or 6 providers that have access to or that have admitting privileges in the newborn intensive care unit. So each of these things allows me to interact with the data, manage that data as I see fit, and understand that information as I move forward. I also have the ability to do a keyword search. So I can do a Google-like search, and I have the ability to configure these. First, the list can have any number of attributes in any order at once, very similar to an attribute group if you're using Master Data Services. But this is just a view that sits on top of the data and can be used for a specific form. But I also have the ability to select which fields I filter. So if I look for a specific word, such as we'll look for Leslie, it will show me only the Leslies within the system. But if I look for something like Penn, you'll see that it's going to show me all the places where I have the University of Penn Medical Center or Pennsylvania within the data. So I actually chosen the different columns that can be reviewed here, look at the data, understand the information that exists, and really conform and control that. If I look at the data on the screen, you can see that I can see my data quality rules. So I have my validation issues details here. I also have this little question mark here. I don't think I have any question marks that are actually in this data, but this is really machine learning. So I can actually provide anomaly detection. So in some cases I have business rules. That's, I would say, the lion's share of stuff we're going to do on master data, where we have specific set rules where we're going to look for certain things. In other cases, I might do anomaly detection. This is to say, I don't know what's wrong, but I'd like the system to highlight places where there might be something wrong. And so that's why it's a question mark. Gives us an idea of saying, hey, this just looks a little out of whack. This might be a little bit different within the application. Now, the next thing is very important too, is that we have configurable forms. So if you're used to the MDS system, it's really going to show you a long laundry list of your attributes in a specific order as you put them into the system. Here, these are fully configurable. I can set up each of my tabs. I can set up what attributes are shown on those tabs. I can have buttons that are going to call out to external services like MPES, Dun & Bradstreet, address verification. I can have forms that will show me hierarchies, as well as I can see highlighted fields where I have data quality rules. So you can see here that it's in yellow, which lets me know that last credential date is failing a rule, which if I hover over it, it will show me right on the screen that it is a required field. And I can actually look at this data, make determinations, and do that stuff. If I want to go to a hierarchy, it will bring up that hierarchy screen right to the form, and I can actually move that member in the hierarchy in a hierarchy-like form. I have the ability to filter or look for locations. So in this case, I'll look for psych. And you can see it'll show me all the places in group psychology. And as I click on them, I can see their hierarchy over on the right, determine where in this ragged hierarchy I want to go. Once I found the location, I can click this. I can compare that to my unmapped location before. Now, again, if this was a mapped location, I could look at those two things and make that change within the system. If I close this, I just go right back to that form and functionality that I was already looking at. So able to do all of these things. I can even trigger like a data quality rule or a workflow straight from the screen here. I still have the ability to have the history of a record showing up on the screen and manage that data as I see fit and understand that information, as well as have member files and upload attachments. So all of that's still available to me inside the application, but just gives us a much more robust application to do most of this work in. These fields are fully configurable, and it's all configuration, no coding. So you'll get a React Java website that is configured to your specifications. And you can see here, I'm doing it horizontal versus vertical, and we're looking at patients. But all of this is kind of available, and you can see that I can go in here. I can even have avatars on my records, so I could see individual people on the screen, see data quality rules, and again, have more complex data quality rules, where it must be less than a certain date, managed in certain ways, address verification be called on the fly, and I can have attachments. So all of this is available in the application, no matter how I'm using the data and what that data is. Still using the same concepts of entities, attributes, hierarchies, ragged hierarchies, derived hierarchies, but giving you that power in a much more powerful way. All right. So all of the features we've just looked at outside of the small discussion of address verification are included in our application edition, and I would say is a one-to-one fit with the MDS kind of feature set. We also have workflow that's included in our application edition. This allows us to do real-time notifications and give people links directly to forms. Now, that can either be here where I click on a link and I go directly to the form inside my application. So in this case, you can see I have an approval form with approve and reject and manage that data in that way. Or I can have like a contribution form. And if I click on that form, you'll see that I have the ability to see multiple hierarchies on the screen, make changes, and then save and continue. So all of this is kind of able to be done. I also have the ability to have required fields. So you can see the stars here. If I try to remove that information and then save and continue that information, it's going to let me know that I have to set all required fields before I can move forward. So it just allows me to kind of manage that data as I see fit, but keeps me to control that process and ensure that people have at least the bare amount of information to move processes forward. And that's on configurable on a form-by-form basis. It can leverage business rules, as you saw with that yellow, and there would be red if I required it to meet the business rules. But in this case, I'm just saying certain fields on this form are required, just like certain fields on this form are disabled, only data that you can see. All right. So I'll just say save and continue here. I have another field that I need to fix. So if I go over here, I can see that I have to fill in this one. I'll just save and continue. So I've now saved that information. You see now I have 2 approval tasks for the 2 records, and I can manage that information. All of the stuff we just looked at is just the same functionality, but leveled up significantly, right? So you had the ability to do really rudimentary workflows in MDS, but there's a lot of coding to it. It's really not doing anything but triggers into other actions. It's not really anything where you have the concepts of forms, links, data processes, approvals, rejections. None of that stuff really exists. This is built in with Windows Workflow Framework. It just gives you a much better approach to this whole process. But if I go a little bit farther, you can see that I can now go to data and I can see master data management. And so in this case, I can see all of the records of Molly Peters from multiple systems that match together, and I can get a golden record. So this gives me golden record management across multiple systems, can manage data as I see fit across the organization. In this case, if I go to Kasaya Banks, I'll be able to see a match group for him. And here you can see I have 3 records from Kasaya Banks, 2 where Kasaya Banks exactly matched because I have the exact information from my MedHawk and Clinica systems. But my Conduent record does not have an H, so it's a 91% match. I'm able to look at the data here. You can see that there will be different differences on this data as I move forward. You can see I have a last credential date in 2 of my systems and not in one of my other systems. And so I can kind of look at this data and I can harmonize that data if I want, or I can manage that information as I see fit. So I can harmonize that data across applications or manage that data between the applications, survive different records up to the golden record as I see fit. I also have the ability to do visualizers where I can see all of the information for a specific record, understand how these records match together and created the Kasaya Banks record. If we head over here and I click on Emily Johnson, I can actually look here and see view relationships. And so I can actually drill into Emily Johnson and all the relationships he has around the things. I can quickly see that she has 3 providers, 2 companies, 2 medications, and 4 addresses. And if I want to drill into that information, I can drill into it as I see fit, see the different companies she's been related to, the providers that she works with, and the medications that she takes. So all of that information is available to me, and I can drill in to that information from the Emily Johnson record. So this is the base information. This gives us the ability to kind of manage the data on the front end, kind of understand that process. But if we want to send this data to other applications, one of the things that I would say is that we're going to be the easiest system to integrate into your applications because, again, the deep down bones of Prophecy was what MDS was. It's still entities, it's still attributes, it's still the concept of a model, even though we only use one model. We have that concept in here where we do attributes and entities. This is our REST API with our full Swagger. And you can see that I have my matching and my records exposed. And so I can go in and I can try out a call. I can see the different pieces where I can do my filters, I can do my order buys and things like that if I so choose. But we also have the ability to go all the way back to use staging tables. So if you're using master data services, you're using those views, you're using the staging tables that were created way back in 2012, you can still use that kind of approach. Now, we've modified and updated those, so you won't have the concepts of merge optimistic and merge deterministic that I came up with a long time ago. I apologize for that, because there's just a lot of better ways to do that. But now you can really do things in many different ways within the Proxy platform. The next thing I'm going to show is the back end. So this is our Fast App Studio. This is where we kind of build those processes, and you still have the ability to do data transfers. You can see data. We have Excel imports, and you can copy and paste from Excel into the process. So we're really replacing the Excel add-in with a number of features. In our next release, we'll have Excel add-in in the portal application. So in R3, we will have Excel add-in built directly into the web solution as well. But we can manage data within the application, and all of the concepts that you're used to with entities and attributes is exposed. We just make it a little bit better. So instead of having to create an entity and watch that entity be created on the fly, we actually allow you to build stuff in real time in the application, make changes very quickly in the application, even manage complex relationships. So if we come down here and look at patients, for instance, since we are looking at patients, you can see here that I have my patient entity. I have all of the attributes that are exposed here. You can see that I'll see those attributes in a good grid over here, and I can drill into those fields as I see fit and manage that information. But if I want to create a new one, I can do it very quickly in the web, and I don't have to wait for anything to be done on that. So if I'm creating another attribute, I can still have the same concepts of number, date, time, date, and link. If I click on number, I still have decimals. If I save that information in, you'll see that it's going to save into the information very quickly. Because I'm not actually creating that entity, I can create a model, I can save it off, and then I can publish to server when I'm ready. So I can make 50 changes before I actually publish those changes. So I don't have to wait for each and every attribute to be created to go and build another attribute. I can drag and drop 5 attributes. I can add an address. I can add different pieces and do that relatively quickly within the application. We also have the ability to manage relationships. And so one of the relationships I want to highlight is like patients to drugs here. And I just wanted to show the concept of a many-to-many. So we can have patients to drugs through a bridge entity patient to medications. And that can be shown really remarkably well in the UI. So if I go back over to my patient information, we'll go back to Emily Johnston in this case. And you can see that I can see the medications tab, and I can actually see her 2 prescribers of Entresto over time, and I can see the times they were started, how it was done, how that works. I can even add new medications into the system. So looking at this data, I can have forms within forms. It just gives me a much more rich experience for interacting with data, whether that's being data that's loaded into the application or an aggregation of data from multiple systems, and just showing that data to end users across the organization. All of this is kind of available within the application, and understand this information as we see fit. All right. So if I go back over to the application here, I just wanted to cover a couple of other things. You'll see that when I go to matching and survivorship, it's a relatively simple kind of approach to use. In this case, if I want to do matching on data, if I go to my provider matching, you're going to see that it's very simple for me to kind of build multiple strategies into one. I can come in here, I can separate matching from survivorship, and I can build an order of operations and multiple strategies where I look at MPI numbers and last name and first name and zip, and last name and first name and zip, then last name, NPI and zip. Each of these things are going in a certain specific order. If I match in one, then I'm out of the group for matching with other ones. But if I edit these, you can see that it's a relatively simple. We're not trying to make this matching so hard. There's lots of stuff going under the covers. We're doing a lot of Jacquard and Levenstein and managing these pieces, but we want to simplify these things with token types, exact matches, token matches, and really managing these processes. You can also have system lists. So if I'm looking at my first names, for instance, I can use my Anglo name system list, and this will look for things like Bob and Bobby and Robert and be able to manage that data across the organization. So I can very quickly provide matching, aggregate data, group that data, and move that process forward. So it takes the MDS features. You can use our application edition. You can manage that information. But when you're ready to take it the step further and really manage your customers, your products, any of these kinds of things, and really group that data across multiple systems, you can do that within the MDS system. And all it is a new license tag in our prophecy system. You also have the ability to do survivorship, decide which is the best place to get those data, and you can do it in sets. So all the, what I would call all of the functionality that was poorly implemented in DQS, admittedly, back in the day, you have built into the prophecy system so that you get that functionality right on the data, stored in the application, gives you that process from day one, and to manage that information within the prophecy system. As I said, with staging tables, you can build staging tables. You can make them look exactly like how you want them to be for MDS. In this case, we're doing patients merge. You can set up the table names so they're exactly the same names. And you'll see over here, the better approach than what I did with merge optimistic and merge deterministic and those types of processes is that you can actually make those calls on a field by field basis. We also have the ability that if I go to a domain attribute, like merge status or master record or match status, I can actually trigger this so that if I check this box, then it's going to tell me, hey, if another match status comes in, if another country comes in, if another currency value comes in this staging environment, I actually want to load that. So I don't want to fail those records. If it's unchecked, then it's not going to add that domain value automatically. It's going to fail that record. It's still going to bring that record in, but it will not bring in that currency designation because it did not match, and it'll just give you an error for that member. So it gives us the ability to really focus our energies and make our staging tables work exactly as we want to within the application. And the last thing before I go to Q&A is I wanted to talk about data quality rules here. In data quality rules, as Martin was mentioning, we're going to have all of the same features and functionalities you're used to, but it's just going to be ramped up. So you're going to have more features and more functionality. You're going to have more ability to create more complex rules. We have groups and ungroups and as many filter conditions as you need. We have the ability to do the simple ones like is required and greater than, less than, as well as length is greater than or less than, depending on the field type. But we also have the ability to have what we call Excel-like data quality processes. So in this situation, you can actually build your own rules, and you can do anything with ifs, and they'll build into the expression editor, numerics, logical operators, as well as a number of date, time, and string functionality that you can bring to bear to your data. And again, you can do anything with attributes that are related to you or anything like that, just like you can in MDS. So it gives you the functionality of MDS, but then layers on top of it good usage and help right next to as you build the expression and verify those expressions on the screen. So we just think it's taking all of the features of MDS and taking them to a 2020 coding environment and really giving you the ability to manage that data effectively. All right. And I'll just show one more screen just so you can kind of see that if I want to build these forms, it is not coding and there's no XAML or YAML or anything like that. If I open any kind of form, I'll look at patient. You can see that if I do like patient edit, which is the form we had already looked at when we were doing the patient information, you can see that I can see each of my tabs here, my patient information, and it's just attributes and just drop down. So it's just property lists and configuration for each and every one of these things. Even when I look at the relationship list, it's just highlighting a pre-existing relationship, that patients to drugs, and allowing me to say what form do I show when I open it, what presentation view do I have? What are the fields that I want to show? How do I want this to interact? All of that stuff is configuration. There's no coding. You get UIs very easily. So very simple. While we still have all of the security that you're used to in MDS, I won't spend much time on that. But we did remove derived hierarchies and allow you to do it on a data-driven approach. So again, everything that we had before, we still have. We've just taken it to that next level and made it easier to use and more efficient and effective for your organization. I'll now stop sharing, or well, maybe I'll still share, and then I'm just going to go through. There's some questions, but I want to open it to Q&A and try to answer some questions.
Hey, Tyler, I was answering some of the questions as we went through. So if you just filter on unanswered questions, you'll see a few of them there, and I can kind of read them out for you if you like.
Yeah, can you read them out to me while I try to figure out how to do Q&A?
Yes. Does MDM have API integration with other cloud-hosted domains such as Snowflake, etc.?
Yeah. So we have a full-featured API. Right now, we're in the process of building what we call connects, and that will include integration directly to Snowflake. Now, in the short term, while we're waiting for connects to be available later this year, integration with Snowflake will be done through the API, but there will be a custom API, but it can be used to go to Snowflake. But later this year, direct integration with Snowflake will be available with no coding.
Yep. Couple more integration questions. How can we write SQL to pull data from Prophecy? And is the REST API the only way to pull data out of Prophecy? So can you recap, particularly with regard to cloud and all of those kind of things, how we do integration?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have really three different implementation styles. So this gets us into a little bit of different implementations. We can be on-prem, just as you're used with MDS, where you install it on a bare metal server in your environment if you so choose. But I think one of the big benefits of the Prophecy platform is that you can install it into your cloud application. Now, typically that's Azure for most of our customers because we are Microsoft-centric. But you can do that in two different ways. Either you can install it into your Microsoft compute space and use PaaS, and then you have full control and full access to the database level, and you can write SQL. So everything you're used to in the MDS system, outside of it, it's a way easier data model to look at. There's no more EN76 to tell you what a table is. It's going to say T in front of the name of that. So it'll be T customer, T patient medication. It's going to be much easier to get to those tables and run SQL at the database level. That is available if you're in PaaS, and you can do that at either the views or the database level, but obviously don't insert data at the database. It's not going to work right. In the case of SaaS, though, SaaS is when we actually manage it in our compute space. We're responsible for administrating and securing your data. And in that instance, you won't have access to the SQL level. We do have an integration product called Integrator. An Integrator can actually take data from the Prophecy platform and push it to a SQL Server instance. So you can have a database that mimics at all times. And we have real-time eventing as well. So what that can do is it can keep those two things synced. So everything you see in your data structures on your on-prem SQL Server instance, which could be standard and it doesn't have to be enterprise, would mirror what the data looks like in the Prophecy platform. But you wouldn't be writing those SQL queries against the Prophecy database directly.
Excellent. Is ontological model supported by the hierarchy management? I wasn't sure what that one meant, but maybe you do.
So I think that we do support it. There's going to be some processes that we can support in the hierarchies. We are going to support all of the complex level-based hierarchies as well as recursive-based hierarchies, plus a hybrid of those two together. So you should be able to support that ontological model appropriately, but I would need to see it exactly to make sure that it can be stored correctly.
All right, final unanswered question. What's the turnaround time for migration from an existing MDS reference data to Prophecy?
Yeah, so this is a question where there is some part that depends, but let's talk about what the migration is going to do. Basically, you're going to use the same connectors that we already have for our integrator product that are going to come and grab your data model and build it into Prophecy and it's going to take that whole process will take somewhere between 15 minutes to 2 hours, but that's unmanaged process time. You're basically going to take your model, your hierarchies, your data, all of that information is going to come into the Prophecy platform. It's also going to bring your users and groups in. The two pieces of information that most likely are going to be your big stuff. Well, there's three. Two things of information that are in the Prophecy or the MDS platform that won't be in the Prophecy platform when you first start is your data quality rules, as Martin mentioned, and then your security will not be set up. Because we don't use derived hierarchies and we use data-driven processes, you'll have to kind of set that stuff up. Depending on the size of your model, that might take anywhere from an hour to, I don't know, a day or so. It shouldn't be too long. Again, if you've done crazy security, maybe it could be longer than a day, but I don't think it should be much longer than that. Then the process will be the integration. Now, again, depending on your MDS implementation and how you're doing your integrations, this can vary widely. If you're doing at the database level, those processes should be actually relatively quick. We can mirror the staging processes and the views of MDS relatively easily. And so if you're using SSIS packages or some other form to go against that, we should be able to mirror that relatively easily. And those packages can just be pointing at its one database to another database, in a week or so. Again, I'm not going to say it's going to be in just a day. In the case that you're doing complex REST APIs, there are service-based APIs and we're REST. So that could take a little bit longer. And again, it just depends on how many integrations, the complexity of those integrations, and what kind of changes we want to do to make that process more efficient. But we have a whole consulting team as well as partners that are happy to help people here or anywhere else in the world.
Fantastic. I'm not seeing any more questions. If you could unshare, Tyler, I'll just wrap up.
All right, there I go.
Thank you. And thank you for that demo. Please continue to, if there are any more questions that you have, please just drop them in and we'll still try and get to them. No, hang on. Is there a way to verify if we're using any MDS features, Tyler?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to verify that you're using MDS features, the best way to do that is to go into the MDS and then look at those things. Now, the MDS administrator, the administration portal is where I would be able to tell those things. You can kind of see how many data quality rules you have. The other way to figure out how large your MDS is that we have some scripts we can help you run to figure that process out. But really, the best way to figure out if you're using features. Most companies, because it's such a bloodbath and issues, will understand if they're using workflow, right? It's not going to be a situation where it'd be like, oh, I didn't realize we were using that. Like, there should be, you just go ask your IT team, they'll know if they're using the workflow, because that's a very manual, command line driven process. Data quality rules, most people are going to be using them. You can just go to data quality rules, see how many you have. And then security, that really is going to be based on just looking at your security groups and then see if you have any derived hierarchy security stuff. So it just goes to that tab, kind of look at those things and you'll see if they're there. And look for the groups that have the most restrictive security. That's where you're going to find it. So go ahead, Martin. I think that's all.
All right, perfect. So we're almost at the top of there. I'm going to just flip through a couple of things really fast. And we'll run over by a couple of minutes, but not by much. I wanted to mention the SaaS, because one of the reasons to move off of MDS is if you want to have native cloud services for not only reference data management, but all the other stuff that we just saw. I mentioned before, this slide has a lot more detail on it, that you can implement us platform as a service in whatever tenant, implementing yourself in whatever tenant you want, or software as a service where we run it for you, hosted in Azure. With very high uptime and taking a lot of the administrative burden and technical burden off of yourselves. It is a fully packaged Kubernetes service. So we implement a tenant for you on the shared infrastructure. So there is a real isolation between your tenant and anyone else's tenant, despite the fact they're all on the same infrastructure. So, which is the modern, correct architecture, I think, for implementing any software as a service. I won't go into details here either, but we have SOC 2 compliance from a privacy and security perspective, and there are further ISO 27001 efforts underway right now. So if you have any questions about that, we can address them offline, but there's a lot of work gone in there. And we're available in multiple regions. For data sovereignty reasons, not everyone could use the same region, but we have 5 regions around the world, each with hot failover backup already working, and we could set up new regions if required, pretty much at a couple of days' notice. So SaaS is something that's there completely. I'm not going to go through all of this except to say that I host a webcast every week where we go into some of these things in a bit more detail, so you can register for those on the website if you like. We believe that if you're moving off of MDS, we just give you a lot of reasons why we would be your choice. But if you're just picking an MDS without even that consideration, there are a lot of reasons to pick Prophecy. More fast, affordable, and scalable than other solutions, more multi-domain or more inherently multi-domain than many other solutions, and easier to ramp up and get started with pre-built integrations and a lot of online learning, et cetera, to support that. MDS, the MDS migration is all available as part of the baseline Prophecy implementation. There's no additional costs or whatever, and there's a lot more capability. So let me just wrap up with, if this was interesting to you and you want to find out more and kind of move to the next step, you can request a custom demo if there's something in particular that you want to see that you didn't see here today. If you want to speak to sales about something commercial, both of these things are available essentially through our homepage. And one other thing, if you're interested in MDM as a topic, which presumably you are, on data strategy and on even broader things than that, you should follow Malcolm Hawker. Malcolm was the person, the Gartner analyst who led the MDM Magic Quadrant effort for the last 3 years. He's now part of Prophecy. He runs a podcast called CDO Matters, which he publishes roughly monthly, as well as he's very, very active on LinkedIn. So you can ask him any question there about data strategy, about MDM, about product comparisons, about best practices or whatsoever. So non-technical, not that Malcolm's not technical, but the focus is non-technical and around best practices. So I would say that if you're interested in any of this, you should absolutely follow him. Go to prophecy.com/podcast and you'll find all of those links. Right before we hang up, Tyler, another one for you. What databases does MDM support? How easily can one switch to another? You're on mute, Tyler. Okay, I'm not sure if Tyler's still able to hear. Prophecy is based on SQL Server. There you go, Tyler. Can you get that one?
Yeah, sorry. I couldn't get to my mute button. Yeah, so we support any version of SQL Server. So it doesn't, we're just very Microsoft focused. We want to stay in the Microsoft kind of area. So we are requiring SQL Server. You can't use MySQL or something like that, but you can use any edition of SQL Server, whether that's Azure SQL or SQL Server in Azure SQL, SQL on-prem, and it can be, any version of that, whether that's standard, enterprise, whatever you choose.
And just to kind of expand beyond that, that's what we use kind of internally for all of our internal storage work. But it would be very normal to take whatever your reference data or master data entities are once they're resolved and publish them up to some other environment for access, like Snowflake or Synapse or Databricks or whatever you would want, if it's more convenient for you to use that for analytics or whatsoever. That would be a very normal thing to do. Okay, not seeing any more questions, and we are out of time. So thank you, everybody, very much for your time and attention. Thank you, Tyler, for the years of expertise that went into that demo. As short and sweet as it was, it covered an awful lot of ground and an awful lot of knowledge. So as I said before, if any of this is of interest to you and you'd like to further consider your options in terms of migrating to MDM, contact us through our webpage. start following Malcolm for best practices and all of that kind of stuff. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning. This was recorded, and I think a link to this will be sent out to anybody who registered. So with that, thank you for your time and attention, and look forward to speaking to you all in the future. Thank you.